The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. On the Sabbath, Jesus went through the grain fields, and his disciples were hungry, so they began to pluck heads of grain and to eat. When the Pharisees saw this, they said to him, "Look, your disciples are doing what is not lawful to do on the Sabbath." Jesus said to them, "Have you not read what David did? When he and his companions were hungry, he entered the house of God and ate the bread of the presence, which is not lawful for him or his companions to eat, but only for the priests. Or have you not read that in the law, that even on the Sabbath, the priests in the temple break the Sabbath, and yet are guiltless? I tell you, something greater than the temple is here. But if you had known what this means, I desire mercy and not sacrifice, you would not have condemned the guiltless. For the Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath." Gospel inspired by God. Human chutzpah, and particularly the chutzpah of the ruling classes, seems to know no bounds whatsoever. Most religions or even secular authorities claim for themselves the privilege of either revealing God's law to us or making up laws of their own. So most religions claim either that they got the laws from God, like Judaism claims that 613 precepts were handed down to them by God, or the Catholic Church claims that God gave them the power to make up the laws. Where the famous statement like, "Thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it, and whatever you bind on earth, I'll bind in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth, I loose in heaven." And so where Islam and Judaism claim that God gave them the laws, in the case of the Judaism, it was the laws came through Moses from God, and in the case of Islam, the laws came from the angel Gabriel, to Muhammad. But the Catholic Church even went one better, and they claimed that God gave them the right to make up the laws. And so they compounded all these kinds of laws. And so you had, for long periods of human history, you had theocracies. A theocracy is a system in which the law of the land is the law of God, that you impose God's law as the secular law as well. So Israel at the time of Jesus was a theocracy, where life was lived according to the law of God, the revealed 613 precepts of Torah. And for most of Christianity, once Christianity became a legal religion in the year 313 AD, right up into modern times, the Roman Catholic Church claimed the ability to make the laws, and they could make the most ridiculous kinds of laws and send you to hell for all eternity for breaking these totally made-up mishugas. And so, for instance, those of us who were raised Catholics, you could spend all eternity in hell for eating a sausage on a Friday. So they decided to make up this law, and God was going to say, "Okay, whatever you do, I'll have to go along with it." So this kind of craziness that you can impose the law, the made-up law, and claim God's providence for it. Islam at the moment is a theocracy. Wherever they're in power, they're imposing Sharia law, and they claim to have the ability to impose it on everybody, any place that they're in a kind of a minority. So this notion of theocracy, that the law of God, either God's revealed law or God's giving us the ability to make laws, that's what's creating the order in heaven. But even secular authorities do the very same thing. Nations make up a plethora of laws. We have created some really crazy laws in our country, like the Patriot Act. Laws which are shredding our own constitution and being imposed on us, even at this moment. And it's happening not just here, it's happening elsewhere. And then you get even local jurisdictions making the most ridiculous of laws. I've mentioned a few in the past, like for instance when, what's this gunslinger guy who was the mayor of Carmel at one stage? What's his name? Clint Eastwood. When Clint Eastwood was mayor of Carmel, it was illegal to eat ice cream on the sidewalk in Carmel. Yeah, it was against the city ordinance to eat ice cream on the sidewalk in Carmel. There's a law in Belmont that it's illegal to spit anywhere in the city except on a baseball mound. And there's some little town in Louisiana, I don't remember where it was illegal to eat peanuts on a Tuesday after 6 p.m. You could eat it any other day of the week after 6 p.m., but not on a Tuesday. Yeah? And you could eat it before 6 p.m., but not after 6 p.m. So where people came up with these crazy ideas, and they're imposed upon people. So this is what Jesus is inveighing against today when he talks about the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath. Now that phrase was a blasphemy to his audience. So he's claiming that, Judaism would say that of the 613 precepts of Torah, the single most important ones had to do with the keeping of the Sabbath. And here's Christ saying that the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath. So it's totally blasphemous to his audience. But it was equally misunderstood by Christianity. So Christianity sees this statement, which is as plain as the nose in your face, where he says, the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath. And we take the phrase, the Son of Man, to mean it only applies to Jesus Christ. When he's saying, obviously, the Son of Man, every human being is Lord even of the Sabbath. What he's saying is, laws were made for human beings. Human beings were not made for law. Laws were created to serve humanity. Humanity was not created to serve law. And as is plain as the nose in your face, Christ is saying humans are above the law. Not in the sense that they don't have to keep kind of regulations, but the fact that all regulations were made, and there's one purpose only for law, as far as I'm concerned. It is to try to regulate peace between people and nature. That the only purposes of law are to make sure that human interactions between other human beings and ourselves and between nature and ourselves are done in a peaceful fashion. That's the only reason for law. And any law that's not consonant and resonant and in alignment with that is either a silly law or a dangerous law. And that's what Christ is saying. But the Christian churches claim that this is the prerogative only of Jesus, that Jesus and Jesus alone is above the law. When Christ is saying very obviously, the Son of Man, every human being, everybody born of woman, is above the law in the sense that the laws were created to serve us. We were not created to serve the law. We've created these extraordinary systems. There are countries in the world, like for instance the United Kingdom, England, that theoretically claims the ability to make any kind of law they wish and make it retroactive if they choose, and it applies to every human being on planet Earth, and if they come into the jurisdiction of the United Kingdom, they can be punished for breaking that law. And it can be any law, they can make any law they claim. So literally, and I'm making this up obviously, England claims the right to make a law that would say it is illegal and punishable by death to wear a hat on a Sunday, anywhere on planet Earth. They claim the right to make such a law. So if some dude is in the Sahara with a hat on him on a Sunday, and he subsequently visits England, they would claim the right to be able to try this guy and kill him for wearing a hat on a Sunday. That's the kind of ridiculous notion that nations claim for themselves. Now, other primitive peoples have been much more understanding of law. So there's a tribe in West Africa, and I've shared this story with you before, that when a woman is about 8 months pregnant, the elders sequester her in a hut, and they put her into a hypnotic trance, and they speak to the baby in utero, and they ask the baby 2 questions. And they believe that the baby will use the mother's voice to answer the 2 questions. And the 2 questions are, what is your name? And what is your mission? What are you coming to do? And when the baby is being born, the women will dance around the birthplace, and they will call out the name of the child, the name that the child has revealed for himself. And if subsequently, as a teenager or a 19 or 20-year-old, that this child becomes a lawbreaker, what they do, they gather this kid in the middle of the circle and they dance around and they chant his name. And that's the punishment. And the kid, within 2 or 3 minutes, the kid breaks down, and realizes, he's been antisocial in his behavior, and he's taken back into the bosom of the group. When you compare that with our system here, where we have the highest incarceration rate in the world, there are 2.5 million American people in prison of various kinds. There are 7.5 million people in the judicial system, either on parole or in prison. We have a higher rate than Russia does, that China does, and the Sudan does, because of the multiplication of laws. And so this is what Christ is inveighing against today. Any law that is not in the service of creating peace among humans and between humans and nature is a bad law. It's very interesting. So that's a brilliant point. So, and make it even worse, the name is taken away and you're given a number. And so, We don't understand very often what names mean. We've kind of lost the significance of names. We think a name is just an identity tag that differentiates like Jane from Kathleen. And in the Hebrew scriptures and in the old Celtic tradition, it was very different. The name, you know, I've said this to you many times, that the name you have, your real name, is the song that your soul sang as it was wending its way into incarnation. That's your real essence. And to be able to identify somebody's name is to be able to resonate with their core being. So when I see the story, for instance, that God takes Adam and Eve into the Garden of Eden and he asks them to name the animals. He's not just saying, what are you going to call the guy with the long neck? And what are you going to call the girl with the tusks? And whatever they come up with, that's going to be the name. What God was saying is, can you see the essence of this creature? Can you understand the inner core of this creature here? Because you're going to be in the garden together. You're going to have to live together. You're going to have to resonate together. So naming something was identifying its essence, not just hanging an identity tag in it. And so we've gone 2 steps away, exactly as you say. We've misunderstood what a name means. And then we've, even the essence of name that we did have, we take it out of the equation and we, you know, substitute a number for it. And the person is now just a number. And so much of our modern life is about numbers. You know, your PIN code for your ATM card or your social security number. So more and more you're known as numbers in just a big system, not as a soul on safari.